Hello and welcome to Guy Logic. My name is Temko and today we are taking a look at a game called Life in Bunker. It's a game by Flox Studios, who have another game currently in early access, and they are building and releasing this one. But what is it, you might ask? Well, the Life in Bunker title really does say it all, doesn't it? It is a bunker building game where you build something akin to Fallout Shelter, using a map-like building system much akin to Dungeon Keeper. The question is, obviously, is it any good? Well, we're going to answer that. But first, we are going to look into the settings and options menu and tell you what is going on with that, as well as the performance and general technical aspects of the game. If you do not want to hear me talk about options and settings for the next 5 or so minutes, I suggest you press the annotation that has appeared somewhere on screen. So, let's get into some options. Settings-wise, the game has game, video, audio, and controls. Control-wise, everything is fully rebindable, and even though the game is mostly mouse-driven, there are controls for quick access to various building menus, and that's pretty good that you can rebind these. You can rebind the mouse and keyboard as well. You also have zoom in and out by mouse scroll. You can also disable that, and invert mouse scroll if you would like to prefer that. Audio-wise, the game has volume, ambient effects, 2D effects, UI, and music, as well as notification sounds and notifications in general. I'm not sure why notifications are in the audio menu and not the game menu, but nonetheless they are there. This is a very complete audio menu. I really like that. 2D effects, UI effects, music effects, everything's here. Everything you might want from a game like this. You might say, oh, well, done. Temko, where are the dialogue options? Well, there aren't any, because the game does not have spoken dialogue in any form. Video options wise, my main complaints are that it does not have full screen windowed. It does have full screen and windowed. Resolution is a slider menu, not a drop down, because why would you have that? And the game mouse does not constrain the window, which is really annoying when you have a multi-monitor setup. VSync on or off, SSAO and Bloom, the game performs pretty well, standing around 150 FPS on my GTX 780. Which is definitely not the strongest card in the shed right now, but it does perform pretty well on maximum settings. It also has this target frame rate thing, where it tries to hit the target frame rate you're thinking of, but may dip below should you desire that. I'm not sure why you would want this. I would just turn this off and put VSync off and play the game at max possible settings, which is pretty reasonable. I have not noticed any screen tearing whatsoever, but the game is not exactly fast-paced or anything like that, so that might be quite heavily to notice. And display, you can change the display you want the game to render on, which is also fine. But it still doesn't constrain to keep your mouse to the window, so that is really annoying. Game-wise, it has edge scrolling, tooltips, and autosave on or off, which is pretty decent. It has a couple of languages for dialogue and the like, which is also really good. So, overall pretty decent. Autosave on or off is actually pretty good because you can have autosave enabled, obviously. But you might want to actually turn this off because the game does autosave and overwrite your previous save, and if you've made a mistake a little bit further ahead, you will actually might need to restart an entire game to fix that, because the game doesn't allow you to correct mistakes that easily. It is really unforgiving in that way. So that is overall the options menu. The game runs fine on basically anything up from a potato, and it's not very taxing. Again, it doesn't really look amazing either. I will show that in a second, but it doesn't look horrible either way. So, let's get into new game. New game-wise, you can start a bunker. I'm going to call this Bunker 123 because I am a fountain of creativity. And the world size can go to either small or large. Each map has 4 levels, so you can build 4 plateaus, basically, on top of each other, with you starting at the top level and building down. Small or large, doesn't really matter. Large probably has a bit more resources than small, but it really doesn't matter that much. It's mostly the map size overall, so you can make some bigger rooms or something. Ore is the only thing I would always put to high, because this is the only resource that's finite. Meaning, once you run out of ore, you cannot build building materials, and when you cannot build building materials, you can't progress the game further, and yeah, it kind of gets boring and annoying. So I'm not sure why they wouldn't implement a system for generating resources in some other way, but there's that. Caverns, events, and moment, these all matter. Hiding rifts and mines. Rifts are where you build elevators to get to the lower levels, and mines are the places where ore spawns, so you can hide these and put them on enabled so you can see them at once, and then tutorials which you've disabled. So let's get into some gameplay and show some of that off. Okay, so like most builder games, it throws you into the deep with a bunch of systems at once. Now there's a tutorial and it's pretty good at explaining what is going on where. So on that front, no complaints at all. All the systems are explained, everything is made pretty abundantly clear. But like all sim games, it is pretty hectic in the first initial phase. So the first things you do is obviously, in this procedural generated world, you have a couple of things that are set in stone. You will always start with a power supply, you will always start with a water source, and you will start with a couple of people and some food and a bunch of necessities you need to start your colony. Or your bunker, I should say. Now, as we've activated the visible mines here, you can disable this in the settings menu for each game, but though I wouldn't recommend it, and I'll explain that in a second. I'm gonna start by turning on a bunch of mining, so I can start digging into this place and start building rooms. Because I need some rooms for my beds, I need some rooms for my kitchen, I need some rooms for my research station and mining operations. I need some rooms for my farms to grow food, because if you can see in the top right, there's 4 types of food. It is fruit, vegetables, grains, and fish, and you need a combination of these to make sure your people are healthy, because just substantiating on one type of food is not going to cut it. Now, initially, the game starts you off with a bunch of things you need to take care of at once. And this is pretty interesting because it also starts you off with a buttload of materials to do this with. This does mean, though, that the initial starting phase forces you into a very linear build path. You do not have the luxury of building a variety of different things in different ways. Your first buildings are always going to be a mine and a refinery. It's always going to be a room where you place some beds, some showers, some toilets. It's always going to be up to that into a kitchen. All of these things are pretty linear. Why are they linear? Well, your people need beds at once. You don't start with beds, so you need them. You already have inhabitants, they need some sleep, or they will start not doing their work. You need toilets and you need showers for their hygiene needs, to make sure they don't piss up everything and stink up everything, because then they will get sick. And obviously you need a kitchen for your cook to make food so they can eat and not starve. I say, well, why do you need a mining operation then? I mean, I get the other things, but why a mining operation? Because you need resources to build building materials. Mines generate ore. Ore is then transformed in a refinery into building materials, and you use these to build your bunker. It's pretty straightforward. It's also the main issue I have with the game, and I'll get to that in a second. Let me first explain to you how you do a variety of things. Now, each inhabitant has a random selection of jobs they can or can't do. Generally, these are 2 or 3 choices, and these choices are your builders, that destroy tunnels, or actually they make tunnels, destroy rocks, build floors, and place down items. Then you have your janitors, which is exactly as the term says. They're the guys that clean up everything that is left by other people, make sure there's no trash, and they also are the guys that close the holes the molemen make when they are trying to invade. Now, these are not a big threat, but they can still kill someone pretty easily. Generally, they get ganged up on by 5 or 6 of your settlers, so that shouldn't be an issue in most situations, but it can get you to lose a couple of things. And if you only have 1 scientist at that point, things could get a little bit tricky for you. Now, after your janitor, you end up with an engineer. These are the guys that make sure that the things your builders build and your engineers clean stay working. These are the guys that walk around and perform maintenance on your buildings. Each building has a maintenance priority, so your power supply priority will obviously be very much higher than your toilet priority. If your toilet breaks, not a big deal. You're not going to die instantly or immediately. But if your power breaks, you will not be able to generate oxygen, which is a problem. So you always want to make sure your power generation at least doesn't suffer from breakage. And if it does break somehow, any of your buildings, your engineers will also fix that up. Then you have cooks that use meals from the available foodstuffs you have in your refrigerators, which is also interesting. You store foodstuff in a specified refrigerator. So if you're trying to build 3 types of foodstuffs, you need 3 types of refrigerator unit to store this foodstuff. Pretty interesting, because it forces you not only to make a variety of food, but also think about storing that food and having enough storage to last a cycle until the next harvest season. Cooks make food, people eat food, pretty straightforward. Followed by farmers that farm the food that cooks make the food for people to eat the food from. Again, it's pretty straightforward. Your farmers can do all farming. They're not specialized in different types of farming. So you have 1 farmer and you have both vegetables and fish, then he will take care of both as best he can. Obviously, if you have too many farming resources and too few farmers, some of your food will spoil and not grow or not be harvestable, which is a problem, of course. And lastly, you have scientists. And scientists do 2 things primarily. 1, they are the guys that do the research. And you already saw me place on a research station and a scientist is in it. E is doing the research so I can unlock things like faster mining, so I can clear some of these harder rocks. They unlock better power supplies, they unlock a garbage recycle unit, they unlock health tools and the like. And the research system is not complex, but still nicely implemented, because most of the upgrades are linear, but because you have to invest initially in building a research station to get to them, it's a trade-off on whether you want to hold off on buying these upgrades or not. Sadly though, once you eventually build all the upgrades, and they are linear, so you can just buy them all because they are objectively better, then you can just destroy your research station and you will no longer need it at all. And it doesn't even take that long to unlock all of these things. It took me about 3 or 4 cycles in game, and I'll explain cycles in a little bit. And obviously your scientists are the guys that make sure that people stay healthy using a medical station. So they are the guys that, heal people up when necessary. Now you can see me building here in the background, and I'm building my room, I'm building my kitchen, I just built my showers. There they go, they're coming up. And I'm getting prepared now to build my farm. All of this costs building materials, as I said. And I already talked about, I said I would get back on why I think the major problem with the game is the ore mining. The problem with that is that ore is a finite resource. You have about 600 to 700 ore on any level. And that's on high settings. Each mine has about 200. Low settings, you will get 1 mine. Medium settings, you will get 2 mines. And we put it on high, and we have 3 mines per level. Each level, you can make a lift, go to a lower level, and then you have an additional 3 mines. Each mine will give you in the neighborhood of 800 building materials. And this sounds like a lot. But keeping in mind, a single power supply, a single water supply together will cost you 500. There it goes, that's most of your materials. Coupled with a mining unit, that's another 150, a refinery, another 200, bam, there you go, that's a full mine gone. You need about 1.5 mine for the basic bare necessities you need to build a colony to support 15 to 20 people. That means, you might say, you still have a mine and a half left. Yes, but if you want to go deeper into level 2 or level 3, then you need 1 whole mine just to get the bare necessities for a mining operation on the 2nd level up and running. A whole mine. That means you have half a mine of margin to make mistakes or to experiment with different things. Like I said, the game is very linear in its build progression. Now, having said all of that, how do you progress in the game? How do you win the game? Is this limitless? Is this a sim builder in a pure form? And the answer is sort of. In the top left of your screen, you will see an oxygen meter with your pause button and your time and fast forward buttons. Pretty interesting. I love the fast forward. You will use it a lot. There's number 2 there with a little clock that fills up. Once this hits 50, you will have been in the bunker for 50 cycles, which is, according to the game, 500 years. And that will allow you to win. The problem is, there is no other condition set to that. So if you survive all of this with 1 person intact, then you win. If you survive by going 4 mines deep and building a metropole of 200 people, then you win just the same. There is no initiative, there is no incentive, there is no force pushing you to do more than the bare necessity to keep your people alive. I might say, well, that would make the game less fun. You should build more, you should expand, you should try these things. And yes, you should, but you can't. You can't because you don't have the resources. You don't have the mining resources to build all these extra things. Like I said, you need a full mine just to get level 2 up and running for mining. On level 2, you would need to get oxygen builders, you need to get people down there, so you need a 2nd incubator to grow babies. That means more farms to feed babies, more cooks, more food, more janitors, more everything. Everything expands. And what I've noticed is, around 40 people is the absolute limit you can upkeep with the game's current resource management system on high settings. After that, you run out of resources because you can't keep up with the growing demand for food, water, beds, exercise, leisure, all the other needs you have for your citizens. It is literally impossible to keep up with that because the game's progression curve blocks you. And that's a shame, because that basically means that around cycle 15 or 20, which is about halfway into the game, if you consider 50 the end of the game stagnates. You have done everything you could, you have built everything you had, you're probably out of resources at that point, you're out of building materials, and your colony is stable. You're growing food, your cooks are cooking food, your people are eating food, and there's probably a scientist or 2. making sure that people are healthy. There's enough beds, there's enough leisure, there's enough toilets and showers to keep people up and running. People grow older, old people die, the incubator poops out new babies, they grow up, they get new jobs, and so on, and this just keeps going. You press fast forward and you wait 10 minutes until the game ends. And that is a real damn shame, because there's no incentive to keep pushing forward. All the systems in the game, while sometimes very simplistic, like the upgrade system for the research, and sometimes a bit convoluted, like the needs for people, function really, really well. You can build an aquarium only on a metal floor, because it's a farm, it needs metal floors. It's a game constriction, but it does require you to build metal floors to build a farm. Your power supply can only build on a concrete floor. If you build a floor, you build a ceiling. That means collapses and earthquakes don't break down things. All of them are interesting. Your people have needs. They have sure that they're healthy. You've got to make sure they have oxygen. If you build too far and you build too many tunnels, they will need to spread oxygen there, and your oxygen supply will drop. You will need to build more oxygen. Oh, they killed one of my kids. Well, that's kind of shitty. And all that is interesting and really, really good up to around cycle 20. Because after that, you can't really do much of anything. You're just sitting back and waiting, hoping you get a bunch more resources somewhere. You're not going to get them. And because you can't build anything, you can't expand on anything, you sort of stagnate. You sort of wait around until the game ends, or you start a new map. And the same thing is going to happen. Now, there is a way to circumvent that, but it's not a good way. It's in fact a crappy way. The way to do that is to force expand as fast as you can on all 4 levels, and then expand on all 4 levels, forcing people from level to level to level without expanding your populace, until everything is up and running, and then exploding in populace up to around 100, 120 people. But there's only one way I found to do this, very linear, very tight build, that leaves no margin for experimenting or playing around. And that is one of the main things in sim games that is interesting. So that is the biggest issue I have with the game, is that it runs out of resources to build stuff with, to expand with, to build more, deeper, further, faster. It doesn't have any of that. The game doesn't accelerate. If you think back on the Soul Zero review, I initially said the Soul Zero game had a very slow start, but eventually picked up and turned into a very interesting sim game for the first early 100-150 colonists. This game is the exact opposite. It throws you in and has you manage a whole ton of things at once, and then sort of fizzles out and stagnates. So that's a shame, because it drags the game down quite a bit. For me personally, anyway. Technically, the game runs fine. I have 200 FPS and all the systems work. I found 0 bugs. Everything works as you expect it to. You can manage your water supplies. You can manage your resource allocation for your power supply. You can build a variety of things regarding trash disposal. You can even build a VR machine to make sure your people get their leisure and their socialization in. All of that really, really cool. But you can't really, because you run out of resources. And then you have to decide, am I going to restart the map or press fast forward because the game is stable? There's no reason to upgrade. Yes, they might get sick and puke, but they're not gonna die puking. They'll go to the medic and he'll heal them up, and then they'll get sick again because they only have one type of food. Maybe they won't have leisure, but they can talk to each other. They'll go nuts and they'll be bored, but they're not gonna die of boredom. Sure, they'll not do their jobs as effectively, but really, they don't really need to do their jobs because you have 20 people and all you really need is 1 cook, 1 cleaner, and 1 dude to make sure the medic center runs. Everyone else is extra, so one of them will do the job. And that's a shame. So I hope the developers find a way to improve this resource deficit that starts around cycle 15, because everything else is really interesting. Now, one thing I haven't touched upon yet is the way oxygen works and the way aging works. Oxygen works pretty simple, like most other resources. You build oxygen supplies, you link these up to water and electricity, and they generate oxygen. You have 2 types of oxygen supply, a small one and a big one, and you research the big one using research points, much like all other research options. Oxygen works per level, so if you have oxygen of 100% on level 1 and you go to level 2, there is oxygen there, but as soon as your first inhabitant goes down, the oxygen level will drop. So they can go down, build something, get out again. And the oxygen level will go slowly climb up to 100 again once they are gone. Obviously, in the first level where everybody starts and is, you need to keep your oxygen supply stable at 100. You can dip a little bit lower, but as soon as you dip below 70, 65, your people will start to have some serious health issues. Mostly because they'll be dying from suffocation. other than that, there's aging. And aging is a pretty interesting mechanic. Now, you have an incubator. You start with this. You can build a second one or a third one if you like, but again, like I said, you do not have the resource for that, so you probably never will. An incubator allows you to build babies. These babies have a random distribution of skill points that will translate into different jobs they can do. Some babies can do a scientist, some babies can only be a janitor. And that's fine. Maybe they should have paid attention in incubator school. Once the baby hatches, it is 0 years old and it needs to grow. Once they hit the age of 1 or 2, it's a bit randomized, I think. They can be assigned the job they want, and they'll have that job until you switch them from job, until they turn the age of 12. When they turn the age of 12, they turn into old people. Old people, like babies, don't have a job. You can't control them directly, but they're retired and they'll run around in the little area and be available for I don't know what reason. Until eventually they're too old and they just die of old age. This is around 16 years. Or 16 cycles, which is times 10, 160 years, which makes no sense, but regardless, we're going with it. Now, what I found is a workaround, which I think is very ingenious of me. It is also very practical, but also inhumane, because what I did was as soon as they turned 11, I would force them to go to level 2, which I hadn't built anything, remove them from being able to work in level 1, they'd go to level 2, not come up and suffocate, which I don't think the developers intended, but I found hilarious. Because that way I got rid of my old people and I didn't need to pay attention to them. So that's how aging works. You need to build new babies to keep up with the dying old people. Managing the food resources, managing leisure, etc, etc. So, that is Life in Bunker in a nutshell. The game is an interesting sim game that stagnates around halfway into the gameplay and doesn't pick up again. Would I recommend Life in Bunker? If you like sim builders, I would recommend Life in Bunker tentatively, mostly because it stagnates around halfway into the game. It is interesting what it tries to do, and you can like set the map to small and put 3 mines in and then force yourself to build down and do some things there, and there's some variety you can do. But it's very linear, and I've played I think around 25-30 hours at this point, and I've seen there everything there is to see. There's nothing for me to explore, unlike many other sim games where you are forced to make decisions that are non-linear in their expansion. You may have to pick one type of food over another type of food. You may have to pick one type of building over another type of building because you have different requirements that go forward and forward. Here, that's not the case, and that's a shame. The game performs fine, all that is okay, so that's not a reason not to recommend the game. It's really all about it stagnating and falling flat on its face halfway in. And that's a real shame because I had high hopes, and it doesn't really deliver. So yes, if you like sim games, a tentative recommendation. If you are not a great fan of sim games, then no, I couldn't recommend the game to you. So thank you for watching. If you liked this video, press the like button below. And if you didn't like this video, well, there's a dislike button for exactly that reason. And if you want to see more content here on the Guy Logic channel, just press that subscribe button and we will deliver. And until then, I wish you a good day, and until next time, right here on Guy Logic.